The engine is starting up.
For launch. GC. Go. Guidance. Go. Fido. Go. Prop. Go. GNC. Go. Max. Go. Eagle. Go. Ecom.
Go pending final steps to cabin link check.
3, 2, 1.
Is there anyone here that would like to communicate with us? Can you give us a sign?
Welcome to the R.I.F. Nation Network, the RNN, putting a slide in your glide and a dip in your hip. Welcome to the mothership, the home of the travelers of the universe. With shows throughout the week, you can find us at Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Everything you could want, everything you could need right here, right now. From the paranormal to the supernatural. From comedy to the spiritual. And now, your featured show. Shall we begin?
It's showtime, folks!
Podcast may contain material that some listeners may find sensitive, offensive, or disturbing. We strive to create respectful and informative content, but topics discussed may include mature themes such as violence, explicit language, or controversial subjects, triggering content including discussions related to mental health, trauma, or other sensitive issues, explicit language. Occasionally, our guests or hosts may use strong language. While we aim to handle these topics with care and empathy, we encourage listeners to exercise discretion. If you find any content distressing, consider skipping or seeking support. Remember that this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. If you need assistance, please consult a qualified expert.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. First and foremost, thank you guys so much for tuning in, whether you're here right now or you're going to tune in at another time. I am grateful for you. If you are new here, or this is your first time listening, my name is Ashley, and my podcast is called Uncharted Realms. And in case you don't know me, I have been a paranormal researcher since I was a teenager. I love all things paranormal, supernatural, all things unseen and done. That's why I picked Uncharted Realms. I'd like to welcome everybody, Glenda, Amy, Ed. I see you guys all. Thank you so much, Keith, for sharing out. I appreciate you. Okay, guys, I got an amazing show scheduled for you guys tonight. We are going to be discussing ley lines. Now, if you've never heard of a ley line before, maybe you have, or maybe you have and you're not sure. So I want you guys to think about the earth. Okay. And most people believe that the earth is round. I know some people don't, but most people do. So I want you to think about mystical energy lines that go all around the earth and they crisscross and they meet at points. These are what we consider ley lines. And they are what we use to determine many things like vortexes, and there's all kinds of theories on, healing energy, paranormal energy. Ancient civilizations used these for the way that they constructed their buildings and their monuments and all those things. Hello. Yes, thank you, Ed. I appreciate everybody. Hello, Carrie Lynn. I will make sure I shout you guys out as you are chatting away. I appreciate you, Glenda. Thank you. So, again, earth, energy lines. So let's take a pause about that. I want us to look at our bodies, right? We are all energetic beings. So the earth has energy. Humans, We have energy. We have a soul. So, and if in our body, we have these beautiful things called meridians. And those are beautiful energetic pathways, and they go all over our body, and they take this vital energy that we need to survive to all of our organs, everything. We use it for spiritual connections, to feel good and all. And a lot of times people, especially if you have a spiritual teacher or mentor, you will go and get meridian flushes, because sometimes we deal with trauma. We deal with all things throughout life. And what happens is our meridians get kind of wonky, our chakras get wonky. And so we have to go in and, take care of that. And that's why we get flushes. So I want you guys to think about that with our earth. Our earth has these beautiful mystical lines that go through them and make points. And then what happens is we build on these said points. So things like Stonehenge, the Conjuring House, all those things get built on these points. And then all this energy brews, and we have all this activity. So hello, everybody. I'm so appreciative that you are here. So let's take it way back. Where do ley lines come from? Well, of course, they've always been here, but back in about 1921, Mr. Alfred Watkins was an archaeologist, and he was British, and he was over there, and he was just doing his thing. He was, viewing the world. And then he noticed all of a sudden, when he was looking at churches and mounds and stone markings, they all seemed to come together on a certain line or a certain alignment. And he noticed that. Now, back then, he doesn't really think of the line. He thought about them more as, okay, ancient civilization must have used these lines to transport material, communication, all those things, right? So he's taken account. And if you ever was to go online and research, you can see old ancient maps that he helped create that shows these lines. And back then it was, just a couple of little lines. Now, if you was to look at the earth, I mean, it's full. I mean, it's like, I could probably pull one up for you guys, but it is so many lines going and coming and pointing that it brings up this beautiful energy that we have throughout the earth. So let's see if I can get it. So we have something like this. Okay. And as you can see, again, the earth is round, so the energy is constantly flowing. And as you can see, at each point, we have something, whether you're in the United States, you're in Africa, you're in Australia, no matter where you're at in the world, you're going to encounter a ley line. Thank you so much, Renee. I appreciate you for sharing it out. And this is so important. Also, just in case anybody's curious, this is Mr. Alfred Watkins. He is our 1921 archaeologist that first discovered, or at least is first known to discover, that, hey, there's something going on over here in Britain. There's churches and mounds, and all these rock formations are on alignment. And why is that? Yeah, it is really cool. And again, so these lines make a point, and at that point is what they consider the most biggest energy vortex. So when we have things like Stonehenge, if you ever, I know now you can't touch Stonehenge, but back in the day, many people, when you could, they would walk up to Stonehenge and put their hands on the rocks, and they would feel like they were energized, like they were healed. Many people will figure out where these locations are at. And some people, of course, want to go and they want to investigate them, but many people will use them for healing. They will go and meditate at them. They will take their crystals to recharge them. They will do so much. So again, for the timeline purposes, 1921, he says, hey, there's something going on. And then, of course, the world starts going through all kinds of crazy changes. And then, so spiritualism is starting to kick off. We're starting to try to talk to with the Ouija board. We're doing all this stuff. And then, bam, the 60s hit, right? And in the 60s, everybody is all hippie and love and light, and we're all going to love each other. And the mystic spiritualism starts kicking off, and we have all these fortune tellers and seers, and, they can tell us all this amazing stuff. And then we have this guy named John Mitchell, and he wrote the book, View Over Atlantis. That's the name of his book. So he used Plato's Atlantis theory, and he used ley lines, and he connected it. So he was like, okay, hold on. There's something energetically going on here. That's when we start really talking about energy. Remember, Alfred was more like just the way it's set up is interesting, where this guy was more like, wait a minute, there's an energy field going on here. It's not just a certain way that they're doing these monuments. It's got to do with consciousness and energy. And he and another man also believed that this was a way that in ancient civilization that us humans back then were communicating with extraterrestrials. Now, depending on what you believe in, some people believe that pyramids, the reason we have pyramids is because somebody up there in space decided to tell us how to make them, gave us the tools, the education we need, taught us all this stuff. It's going to be dependent on your personal belief. But so they said, well, back then they would use these beautiful meridian lines and these ley lines to communicate. You meet at a certain spot, you were more likely to see a UFO. You meet at a certain spot, you were more likely to get a crop circle. You had a language barrier to meet with these extraterrestrials, whether you could see them or just communicate or give your offering. If you were, because back then a lot of cultures gave offerings to gods and goddesses. So they used these mystical paths to do this. And it built on from there. Now, what can you expect from these beautiful ley lines? Well, we have things like, we have heightened paranormal activity. So you will go to a location and you'll wonder, well, how come this house is haunted, but the next 3 houses down are not? Now, there's many reasons why that could happen, but one could be that it is sitting on a ley line. Take into account the Conjuring House, that is known. Gettysburg is known to set on a ley line. So what happens is we have Gettysburg on a ley line, and then we have a lot of trauma. What happened? The Civil War came through, and all of these soldiers passed away very fast. And that created this vortex of energy that is there. And that's why we have residual energy and hauntings, all these things. It all started back before when it was just this line. Now, of course, we have skeptics. Scientists will say, oh, this is not real. You're just getting electromagnetic readings, which is, you do get those readings. And they'll say, and as humans, we are meant, energetic self-owning system for sure. Yes, Renee, absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. As humans, we are meant to create patterns. It's like in our psyche. We want to create patterns. That's why we have things like pareidolia, where you'll look at a picture and you'll start to see faces when faces aren't there. Our brains want to create the pattern. So if you ever was to present this to a skeptic, that's the first thing you're going to get is, oh, your brain just wants to make a pattern. The lines would be there no matter what. But, it goes back to your personal beliefs. So how do we find a ley line is a big question too, that I was doing some heavy research on. And it's interesting because they use things like, well, now we live in 2025, we have Google Earth, and you can upload certain grids if you get all fancy with technology, and these grids will go over the earth and it will do the lines perfectly. But in olden days, before our beautiful technology, we would use things like these right here. So these are dowsing rods, and we use these in paranormal, and these are really big for finding water sources, right? So if you want to find water sources, you would use these. Well, one thing about ley lines is there's almost always some kind of water source because they're conduits for energy. Thank you, Glenda. I appreciate this. So back in the day, and I also I did bring props. They would use these, and then of course this is a small pendulum, but they have bigger all shapes and sizes. They would use these pendulums because you got to find out where the energy is. You got to find out where everything's at. So these dowsing rods would help find, water and things. So for instance, an example, you have your backyard. You would go out there with these, and I'm not saying go do this. This is just an example. And you would take these and account for every time that these crossed over, you could put like a little stick or some kind of marking in that spot in your yard. And you keep walking, and as they separate, then you're no longer on the line. But then you keep going and you keep marking it, and then you figure out where in your home or your yard would this ley line cross over, or maybe border it even. So these, of course, these have been used for many, many years. They're used for all kinds of things. Me, I have a love-hate relationship with them, I think, because I have a trimmer. I feel like I move them on my own, but, to each his own. But these are really used for many things outside the paranormal. So that is one way. And then, of course, pendulums. And now we have these beautiful grids that we can pop up, and it makes it so easy. And we live in a world where no matter where we're at, we can communicate with everybody else all around the globe. Love my rods, you do? Keith, maybe you have to teach me because I am not good at it. I got these. They have little skulls. I love them too, but I feel like mine just constantly move. Like I'll be sitting there trying to keep them still, and they start crossing and bouncing and doing all these things. I'm like, either I have a lot of some stream going on in my house, or I have got some big spirits, or I suck at it. One of those options. But yeah, everybody loves them. I have a love-hate relationship with them, and pendulums too. You know, if you're somebody that's successful at this and you can do that, of course, this is a baby one. We also use things like electromagnetic fields. Think about this: if you are a paranormal investigator, you're gonna go to the house, right? You're gonna do your baseline. You're gonna go around the house with your let's see, we have EMF readers, we have REM pods. What do? They measure the electromagnetic field. They measure temperatures, things like that. So if you are near a ley line, it is said allegedly that you will have a whole lot more electromagnetic energy. And if you're dealing with paranormal stuff, spirits need electromagnetic energy and a lot of it to manifest. So they gain it all up. That's why they suck our batteries dry, and that's all the stuff. They suck it all up, and then boom, there you go. You have activity. They use this beautiful mystical ley line to do that. Amy says, do ley lines exist in all cultures, or are they more prominent to certain spiritual traditions? Oh, I love that question. Let me click on it. I'm so sorry, guys. I keep forgetting to click on the chat. So, yes. So, of course, here in the United States and most of the world, we use the term ley lines, thanks to Mr. Watkins. But did you know that in China, they use dragon lines? So in China, they're all about feng shui, and, you know, and the way that the energy flows is feng shui. That's why you don't supposed to have your furniture against the walls. You're supposed to have it out a little bit. You need that constant flow of energy. I always laugh that my house can never be feng shui because I got too many kids and clutter. But so in China, they call it dragon lines. They use a feng shui method, and the lines that travel through there will be considered our modern day ley lines. They just call it something different. Australia has something called song lines, and they take that and they take their religious beliefs and they say, well, energy flows this way. That's a song line. And over here we say ley lines. So, and then of course, every country is going to have something different, and every culture. That's a few examples. That's a great question. I love that. My ancestors used those to find the place to put the well in, as well as to check the land and be in the house in the right place. Yes, I am telling you guys. That's so good, Renee. These bad boys are, you know, it's funny because some people, especially now because of YouTube and everything, they'll see these and they're like, okay, I'm going to go speak to spirits. And I'm not saying you can't, but they forget that this stuff was created for many other purposes. I think they're cool. I think it's a user error personally for me. Again, my hand has a tremor. I don't know why. I can't fix it. And I feel like it interferes and I can't get an accurate reading, and then it messes with my stuff. But yeah, you find water, everything. I say if you want, up to you. You can always get a pair. They're pretty reasonable depending on the kind you want to get. Find you somebody that makes them and support a small business and give them a try with protections. Don't go out trying to communicate with something if you don't know what you're doing. And there's a train going by my house. I apologize. I have ley lines on my property, hence is why it's so haunted. Yes, that's really interesting. Thank you. So one of the questions I always wondered growing up, especially when I was a teenager, I was like, how come, let's say you have a house, a neighborhood. This house is haunted, but the whole street is not. But why is this house? Now, there's a list of reasons why something could be haunted. So that could be a different episode because that can go on forever. But we have to look at, is there water running under the house, around the house? Because that's a big conduit. And if you have water, boom, spirits have exactly what they need. So, you look into all these things. Do ley lines run through this? Is that why? Do they connect right here? Is that why? Is that why Gettysburg happened the way it did? Is it because it's such a big vortex? Is that why you can still see the soldiers there? Or is it just because of the trauma? We don't really know. Very interesting. So do those lines help get activity with the rods? Yes. So allegedly, according to theory, if you believe in ley lines, of course, I like to keep it non-biased. These will let you know, hey, there's a ley line here, because they pick up that energy. And wherever there's a mass amount of energy, that's considered a ley line. Now, according to my picture that I showed you guys, a ley line could pretty much be anywhere, because, you know, as the earth, not the earth grows, but as we add to the earth, because we're constantly building and moving and grooving. So just, you know, again, look at that. Every little point, and this is just the United States depicted in this picture. But see out in the ocean how they come together. So what does that tell us? What's out in the ocean that's really big for all things supernatural is Bermuda Triangle, right? So when we look off the corner, Florida's down here. If Florida's down here, off the corner, you have a massive point system where it all comes together. We create the Bermuda Triangle. Do you think ley lines influence our personal energy fields or maybe spiritual awakens? Yes. That's an amazing question. Amy, I love you. Thank you. So yes, they do. So think about it like this. They say that ley lines can help you connect spiritually better because a lot of them are used to find inner peace. If you're somebody that believes in Buddhism and you're meditating a lot, or if you talk to monks and they have certain spaces that they go and they meditate, they find these spots and they build their temples because it's considered sacred ground. A lot of churches that were built back in early civilization was built on sacred ground. Now, a lot of times you have to blend in sacred geometry into that, and that's a whole different beast in itself for another live, because that still confuses me. But that has a lot to do with it. It all comes down to this beautiful package. So, you know, if you live near a ley line, you might notice that you are more in heightened with energy. You might have more, you feel like your gifts, everybody's gifted. We just have to practice and grow them. So maybe you can read better at your spot, or you can meditate better, or you can communicate with spirit better, or you find yourself able to talk to Jesus if that's your mojo. Whatever it be, I really think it has to do with it because it gives us that energy we need. Again, going back, our bodies are flowing meridian lines. Our bodies require energy. If we don't have energy, we can't function. Have you ever tried to get up and you're just done? Think about this. Oh, I love it. Think about this. My fellow investigators, I'm going to probably stick on paranormal because that's my jam. But when we go to a location and you investigate, okay, you go to that location, it's really active. You're investigating. Everybody has adrenaline because we're all excited. We're all pumped up. We're waiting like, okay, come on, spirit, show me what you got. You know, so we're all emitting. So when we're feeling feelings, whether it be good or bad, we're emitting energy. So the location is giving us this amazing energy from the ley line. We are emitting adrenaline and all this fun energy. And that's why a lot of times when we leave the location, go home, we can't go to sleep. I mean, we are pumped up. We didn't seen something, heard something, or maybe we didn't hear anything, but we're just pumped up because, hey, we got to go to that location. And then the next day you have a paranormal hangover because you're drained, because now you've stayed up. You were pumped up. You couldn't sleep. Churches. Have you ever gone to church, especially like an older church or any kind of church actually, and everybody's singing and jamming and everybody feels good and we're bubbly? We're emitting that energy. So when you leave that church, you feel good. You feel cleansed. There's allegedly sightings that they would purposely put churches, maybe not so much today, then I don't know, but I'm talking like early civilization. Churches were personally put in certain areas for that purpose because it's set on a ley line. It was a sacred ground and it would help. I've heard that lines are roadways for alien spaceships. Any thoughts on this? That is true. They say that most of the time that ley lines are where you're going to see. Remember those points where they all come in? Bam. That's where you're probably going to see your UFOs. That's why the crazy like storms might pop off. Bermuda Triangle is really big, right? Because in Bermuda Triangle, what happens? The electromagnetic field is so wonky. And when it's wonky, what happens? The ships, the compasses mess up. The airplanes, the compasses go wild, haywire. People get lost. They don't know what's going on. Well, think about all the energy that's emitting. You have the gas that comes up out the water, and, you know, it's a big thing. Helps to pull in energy through the crown chakra, helps balance the energies and prevent the paranormal hangover. Really, Keith? I love that. We need to talk. I need some help. I always get a paranormal hangover, Keith, always. I think it's because I have an adrenaline rush after and I'm just bouncy and I'm just like, I feel good. You know, either I saw something or I was like, man, I sat there all those hours and seen nothing, but I still feel good. But yeah, so they said that extraterrestrial crafts would come in at these points and hover. A lot of crop circles, you know, I know a lot of crop circles can be man-made. We know that, but not all of them. Not all of them can be man-made. So let's take the ones that we cannot prove were made by man. Those particular crop circles, if you were to place that picture on the map, the exact coordinates, and you had that grid up, it would probably fall in ley line. Can these lines help you manifest wants or dreams? I don't know about manifesting wants, but they can definitely affect your dreams. A lot of people that have homes on ley lines, I know Glenda says she does, so she might, if she's still here, she might be able to attest to this. You might have more vivid dreams. You might have more lucid dreams. Remember, you know, we have lucid dreams, we have astral projection. If you're lucid dreaming, that means you know you're dreaming. You're in that dream and you know this is a dream. Whereas astral projection, you are traveling, right? Actually, we now know that G5 affects us as humans. This was just found out in the last 2 weeks. Now looking at power lines or the grids of ancient world, it was set up much like a flower of life. Now they say that the grid of G5 acts like the same grid of pattern flowing. Do you believe that G5 can affect ley lines? I came across this in the connection G5. Put ley line pictures together and read the article. Oh, that's a good question. Absolutely. I have beef with this whole G5 thing. I feel like anytime that we are adding, you know, you could take it back to, I mean, microwaves a little bit of energy, right? But when we started adding all these appliances and we started adding all these routers and Wi-Fi and all, I mean, the internet is an amazing tool. But when we added G5, and then next thing you know, they'll want to go up more and more and more. It'll never be enough. So what happens is people start getting sick. Have you ever had EMF sickness? I don't know if anybody has in this room or listening or will listen and have, but things like, it can cause things like headaches. It can cause nausea. It can cause hallucinations. So again, going back to the paranormal, if you are investigating, and the first thing you have to, not the first thing, but one of the top things you're going to do is you're going to see how high is the EMF going on in this home. And then when it comes to G5, I absolutely agree that it affects it. It's probably messing it up or it's creating the perfect storm, right? So you already have all this energy building in this spot. And then you go and you have to be macho and get to G5. And then you throw that in there and that's emitting. And then so you have this like big poof. I don't even know what the word to say to that. This big poof of stuff. Except the energy as opposite to shut us down. That's the working theory. Oh, you believe it's meant to shut us down? I don't know. I have met a lot of people that, especially with EMF, they get sick. They get really bad migraines. And that's why some people will cut their routers off. They will, when they go to bed. You should never have a phone next to your head. I know a lot of us are guilty of that, or in our hand. You know, it could catch your bed on fire, so never do that. But some people will put it right next to where they sleep on their little end table. That is emitting EMF, right? Sorry if I missed anything. I promise I'm good. Yes, I have lucid dreams more often. See? So that answers the dream thing. I definitely believe G5 will mess up that connection. I love that Keith, EMF poison is indeed a thing. I agree. Exactly the word, perfect storm, right? So what happens when you have the perfect storm? It builds and builds and builds, and eventually it's going to pop. Now it's either going to start our oceans, obviously they're already warming up. I mean, we can fight whether global warming is real or whether it's not. That's subjective to thought. But what we can say is over the past 10 years, the oceans are getting warmer and warmer. I mean, these creatures are coming up out of nowhere that we haven't even seen before. The hurricanes are getting worse. There's a lot going on energetically in our world. And that we cannot argue because it's true. You can argue whatever you want, but that is facts, scientifically proven. So we have to think, what are we doing to ley lines? If allegedly ley lines are real, what are we as human beings? And we're so much trash and clutter and, you know, we're emitting all of this pollution. What are we doing to this energy field? Are we shutting it down? Are we making it opposite of what we need? Are we ruining it? What are we doing? Let's see. Yes, the article states that several scientists have come out and stated that the G5 has the lotus flower, but it is meant to, in the reverse, is taking energy away from humans. Has anyone noticed in the past years how you're feeling more drained and more tired all the time? That's because of what we were dealing with. Yes, I agree. A lot of people have been feeling funky and like drained. The first thing I do is I try to find one of my friends. Thank you so much, Ryan. Ryan says I'm doing a great job. I appreciate you. When my phone's on G5 is slower than G4, I noticed that my phone won't stay in G5. Again, guys, I have a cheap phone, but think about this. I mean, this is kind of conspiracy wise, but if in theory, us as human beings, if we can get all of our spiritual power and we're in line and we're booming, we got our gifts down packed, we know what we're doing, we're untouchable. That's a threat, right, to certain groups of people. So maybe in hindsight, it's purposely done so that way they can hinder our gifts. I'm not saying that's true. It's a conspiracy out there that says that. I wouldn't put it past them, but that's why we have things like I'm a full believer that find you a good spiritual mentor, or, if you're a spirituality person or if you are something different, then that's fine too. Find somebody within that, but find you a good mentor. Get these meridian flushes. The best thing I ever did, Glenda is my mentor. She does it. She did a meridian flush and it made me feel so alive. So it had me thinking all these years I was wonky on my meridians and they were probably all out of whack, and I had that flush and I felt good. So maybe this comes back to self-care energetically. What are we doing for ourselves in our energy fields, our auras, our chakras, all of the above? What are we doing for us? Because the first thing we do every day is we get up, where most of people, we get up and the first thing we do is we grab this right here and we are sticking it in our face and we are dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. I mean, I was sick a week ago looking at my phone and it tells you every week you spent X amount of hours on your phone. I think it's really disturbing. Let me see. Yes. And isn't it interesting, Ed, that they say it's a lotus flower? I love that. I don't love the fact that they're reversing it. I love the fact that like the lotus flower is coming back and getting its time to shine. I had a client with an alarm clock right by her head, by her bed. It maxed the meter, moved the clock, solved the case. Yes. I have spoken to many people who, not many, but I've had a few people who were kind of like, well, I guess you're not almost, you either hallucinate or you don't. But and they'll have the router right next to their bed. They're having headaches. They're seeing stuff moving. And I'm like, have you tried moving it out? Have you tried? Just cut the router off when you go to sleep. Why do you need it on? And, if you're asleep, you don't need the internet. You don't need to watch TV. Cut it all off. Let your body breathe. And again, I'm not the expert. But these things can cause headaches, nausea, hallucinations, just overall drainage. And it depends, because there's people that it doesn't affect at all. So it goes back to that. But it's all about, we're supposed to, at least I assume we're supposed to keep this beautiful balance, right? You have yin and yang and good energy and there's negative out there. And there's supposed to be a balance. It should never be more negative than good. It should never, it's supposed to be a balance there. So it goes back to what are we doing as a world? Yet we can change our mindless habits, change your morning routine, put the phone down. Yes, Amy, I agree. And it's a habit, guys. It becomes an addiction, because our life is in our phone, our calendar is in our phone, our business contacts are on our phone, social media is all in our phone, calculators, our bank, you wake up and check your email, it's in your phone. Phone down, coffee up. Yes, there's not enough coffee, guys. I am telling you, there's not enough coffee for me. Now, again, in case you missed it, if you look at the skeptical side, they're always going to come back at you and say, oh, you just want to create, this in your mind. You want to create a pattern. So you're going to look at the earth and you're going to look at all these places. And of course, it's going to look like it aligns. But that's kind of hard when we have countries up, down, left, and right. How can it be perfectly aligned as far as like us making it up? So it has to be some kind of energy force behind it. At least that's what I believe. And I believe that ancient civilization knew this. And that's why, we have these sites. That's why we have pyramids. That's why we have all these beautiful Stonehenge. I mean, think about this. How did Stonehenge get there back then? I mean, modern times, I don't know if we have something that can lift the rock that heavy now. I'm pretty sure we probably do. But back then, how did that rock get up there? There's not enough manpower. The pyramids, there's a lot we have to deep dive into. And how did this beautiful energy get there? Again, Mr. Watkins thought that we use these lines. He didn't think about energy. He used it as a communication line. So if you were trying to get product or building supplies, you would do this ley line route to get it. And then you would build your first brick on the ley line or your first stone or whatever on that ley line. And then it would magically align. And then you have a perfect, endless amount of energy going in a complete circuit. You're letting all the energy into your room. That's like letting the world in your bed. Yeah. I'm curious how they knew other than inner guidance. Okay, Amy. So this will be based on theory. So a lot of it, they say, came from extraterrestrials. Or we can say God or goddesses, gods. It's going to depend on which route your personal beliefs are. I full-fledged believe in extraterrestrials, and I fully fledged that we got a lot of information from them. We can deep dive into that, many topics on that. But there's people that don't believe in that, and they believe in God, and they say God came down and told you, hey, this is how you're going to build it. This is where you're going to build it. Because think about that. How did they know back then, before we had all the technology we had today? How did they even know that that is the perfect spot for the pyramid? How do they know that this is the perfect spot for this church? Did they just pop up and say, hey, I'm going to put a church here? I don't think so. I don't align with that. And I could be wrong. I could always be wrong. Is there any way an individual can control these wavelengths? I don't think we can control them. I think you can control whether your house is sitting on one. I think we can control that. I think you can control whether you choose to go to a certain point that has one. I mean, you can control not having extra things in your homes that emit. Are we going back to the G5 and all that? If you can control not experiencing that, but that's kind of hard in today's line. But the ley lines are there. So you're not going to just get up and move a ley line. You'd have to move your home or yourself or whatever. Hey, do you know by chance what about Edgar Casey? Do I know? Oh, I'm going to do a live on Edgar Casey. I got that in the books. I saw a video about how the Egyptians had powers. So you're saying they used the lines to obtain electricity? No, I'm saying they used the lines to know where to place their things. Where did they place the pyramids? Where did they place their buildings, their structures? They used sacred lines for that, not to get their electricity. I would relate in the same way. I get downloads too. No, I don't know what he said about ley lines. Would you care to educate me? I don't know what he said about ley lines. I didn't know he said something about ley lines. But he's an interesting character. I like learning about him. I enjoyed learning about him a few years ago. Let me know. Tell me, Ed, what did he say? Let me just catch up on the chat. Yes, so neat. It is neat. Oh, I like the little alien ship you put in there. That is so cool. Okay. Edgar Cayce. Oh, here we go. Let me put it up here. Edgar Cayce, known for his extensive readings on various topics, did not specifically mention ley lines in his readings, but he did discuss the concept of energy lines and their connection to ancient civilization and the Earth's structures. Right. You're correct. I mean, think about that. Going back, China calls them dragon lines. Australia calls them song lines. I wrote down something else. What did I write down about that? Various cultures call them axis mundis. Axis mundis, they call them that. There's so many different forms, and it's going to go back to when you were alive, what culture you follow. You know, we got to give Alfred his coin on Leylines, but these been there way before Mr. Watkins was there too. Do you think aliens out of this world beings should ancient people? I'm sorry. Do you think oh, okay, I see it now. Do you think aliens out of this world beings showed ancient people these ley lines? It's definitely a possibility. I mean, I can never say 110% because I wasn't there. But in my belief, I believe that they did a lot for us. I believe extraterrestrials, or whatever you want to say, God, extraterrestrials, consciousness, a spiritual being, archangels, somebody came down and said, hey, this is how we do things. This is how you want to learn. This is how. Because how do we go from certain evolution to making weapons to doing this? How does it all happen? How do we learn alchemy and all the way up to today? Now we're manufacturing medicine that can help us not have a heart attack. Where did all this come from? I'm not saying it's 110% fact, because unless I'm there, I can never say that. But I have a pretty good theory, and there's a lot of people who have studied this. If you could travel to any ley line hotspot in the world, where would you go and why? Stonehenge. There's something healing about Stonehenge. It's like top of my list. Of course, number one was always going to be Ireland for me. But that's a whole different reason. But Stonehenge, again, so many people now they have it barrier where you can't touch it. But there's been so many people that have claimed they put their hand on the rock and it's like the energy would go through and just renew your whole body. Just being in the presence of Stonehenge was like an energy renewal. And and think about how Stonehenge was created. I don't know exactly who decided to do it, but they had it created based on the celestials, based on the moon phases, based on all this. They knew exactly how to do it, and they did it perfectly. Where did that information come from? So you have to dig into your own personal beliefs and decide, who is that? Who did that? Because I can't pick for you. Let's see. That's a good question. What do you guys think? If anybody's in here that knows any hot spots, most of any of the big hot spots that we know of in the world are pretty much on ley lines. So if you guys have any that you would love, I would love to hear. Where would you like to travel to? It can even be here in the United States. Again, the Conjuring House. There's the place in Nevada that's a ley line. There's so many. Texas has a bunch of them. Let's see. They say Egyptians used this in some form of culture to establish communication with pylons and points around the world. Yes. And remember, Egyptians, there was a god and a goddess for everything, down for that to the underworld, to the afterlife. You had to go through these gods to get there. Where'd they come from? I mean, again, it always goes back to personal beliefs. What I can say is we're all energetic beings. Think about this. Think about the human body. Remember, I talked about meridians. I won't say that again, but just to go back in case you just popped in, we talked about meridians and how they go to our organs. But think about the basic nerve endings. Our nerve endings in our brain sends this electric signal to make me be able to lift my arm, to look at you, to open my mouth and speak, to walk, to talk, to do all these things. When our nerves are messed up, we feel that nerve pain. People get neuropathy. It is painful. It feels like electricity burning you. We're electric beings. So how does that happen? Already been to the Conjuring House. Ooh. Let's see. You can't touch it. I'm just catching up. Let's see. Do you think ley lines could be connected to portals and wormholes? Yes. Oh, I'm so glad, because that was in my brain to say. That was in my brain, and it went whoosh. So remember, I showed you the map and where those points come. They say that they create these. And remember, the one big point I showed you, that really big one, was in where? The Bermuda Triangle. What did they say about the Bermuda Triangle? The Bermuda Triangle apparently opens up to another dimension. That's why ships are missing. That's why airplanes are missing. And we can do a podcast day on Bermuda Triangle. I got tons of stuff on that. But, and there's reasons why it could not be there. We can go on forever. But think about that. You open up the portal. Why is it that we go to Gettysburg and we see those soldiers walk that same path over and over again? Are we taking a glimpse? You know, is it because it's residual, or are we taking a glimpse of the past? Is there a portal that's showing us that? We, you know, dimensions and time travel and all is a really cool and exciting topic to think about, and kind of scary too when you think about it. But I believe that, and that's why we have these things. Robert says the Bermuda Triangle has pretty much fallen off the grid nowadays, hasn't it? I just think that people just gave up on talking about it. I don't think it's fallen off. I just think that so in my opinion, if a boat that was very famous went to the Bermuda Triangle right now and it disappeared, we would hear about it. We don't hear about the little things because people don't care. We're busy. Again, we wake up in the morning, we grab our phone, we're go, 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 go. We're more worried about drama that should not matter to us. That's what we focus on. We focus on social media. So things are still going missing in the Bermuda Triangle. We're just not focused on it no more. We're focused on, you know, other stuff. Like, think about that. Drones are around everywhere, but best believe when those drones started randomly popping up, what was it, a few months ago or last fall or whenever it was, all of a sudden it was hot topic. If stuff starts making news that is missing, if an airplane that we know of goes missing, it'll pop back up and it will recirculate. That's kind of how time does. We get on a topic, we leave it alone, and we come back. We get on a topic, leave it alone, and we circle back. That's my opinion on that. But I mean, the Bermuda Triangle is not the only triangle. They have the Alaskan Triangle. That's a really big one. I tell my TikTok peeps when I talk to them that if you want to find some information, some really cool stuff, research the Alaskan Triangle, research Antarctica. And best believe Leylines go through Antarctica too. It's not just down here, it's everywhere. You know, it's just, you know, just depending on what you're focusing on. But these lines go through there. There's portals. There's, another big one. Things like Bigfoot, Chupacabra, the Loch Ness Monster, the Wendigo, let's take into account Mothman. Okay. So most people know Mothman because of West Virginia, right? And Point Pleasant and the big bridge that was there that's actually sitting on a ley line if you research it. But most people don't know that Hiroshima, there was a batted creature seen there. There's a cave in Germany that people almost lost their life, but they backed away because a big batted figure stopped them. And that's on a ley line. So these cryptids are being seen on ley lines too. And then what happens is we see it and then it disappears. Is it disappearing because it's magical, or is it disappearing because it's fading back into its dimension? Because in interdimension or multi-world theory, Bigfoot is always around us, but we can't see him because we can't see into his dimension. And every once in a while, depending on your, you know, there's some gifted people who probably always, but every once in a while, your average person that's just living life will get a glimpse into that dimension. And they see Bigfoot, or they see a Wendigo, or some kind of creature. Another big one is Skinwalker Ranch. We know about Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. That's smack center on a ley line. And we all know that Skinwalker Ranch is all about, you know, UFO sightings and cattle mutilation and paranormal and all kinds of things that go on there. It's sitting on a ley line. So again, we have to go back to the theory. Was it always flowing with this extra energy, or did the ley line enhance the energy of the location, which created this portal for this energy to happen? Did the house that was built on a ley line have an extra chance of becoming active because of the ley line? I mean, of course, you have to add on to like trauma and people that communicate and do things that open portals that maybe they're not know what they're doing. You know, there's many ways that this happens. So when does it all begin? And that's my point I want to teach you, not teach you guys, but get you guys thinking in your own brain, is these magical lines. And how do they begin? When did they begin? You know? Oh, wow. I definitely believe in dimensions. Yes, I will die on that hill that there are different dimensions. I mean, there's so many ways you can flip that too. There are so many. You guys, the rabbit holes go endless. But So yeah, so Leylines, depending on how you think the earth was made. Did God make the earth? Did the Big Bang happen? That doesn't matter. But what matters is when the earth was made, that energy field was already there. And then over time, we start building. Evolution happens. And then we start adding and adding. Wars happen. Trauma happens. People are passing away. People have these mass casualties. People are doing this really dark stuff. All this stuff creates this energy. All this stuff creates these portals. They sit on these ley lines and fumes it up. And then bam, there you go. Hi, Dawn. How are you? How is everybody? I have that hour went by pretty quick. I hope I didn't ramble too much, guys. Hello. Do you guys have any other questions or thoughts? Does anybody, again, my whole point of this is to not make you think, okay, ley lines are real, is to give you all the information, and then you guys can go back when you're ready, think about it, and say, hey, I believe it, or hey, no, we're just making up patterns. Remember, the skeptics say human minds want to make up patterns no matter what, which I get why they say that. Because, for instance, I'm so happy you're here, Don, and everybody. I'm so grateful. My son, he has autism. What does he do? He takes his toys and he will line them up. Our brains make patterns. So it's easy for a scientist or somebody that's a skeptic who will never believe in a ley line, I don't care how long they live, to say, nope, you're doing that. You're putting these places on the map because you want it to create a pattern. And I can see. So I'm not knocking anyone. Either way, I'm not knocking you. I believe in ley lines personally, but that's my personal choice. Does anybody have any last questions before we get off of here? I will see you guys, of course. I'll be back next Friday at 9. Just got home from picking up my rental car. Ooh, I hope you have a safe trip. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Any other questions? I have a few more minutes. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything in my notes, because I have to write it down sometimes so my brain doesn't go boom. We talked about all this stuff. Crop circles, paranormal. Yep. Yeah, I have to write down dates because I'll have it in my brain and then it goes whoosh. Machu Picchu, pyramids, the Giza, they're all sets on ley lines. Sedona, Arizona, that's an energy vortex. I listed a lot of places. Thank you. I'm so grateful for you. All right, guys. Well, if they don't have any more questions, I think I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go and get your sleep on or whatever you guys are doing tonight around the world. Thank you, every single person who took the time to come in and chat with me and comment and even watch, or the people that will watch in the future. Thank you. Thank you to R.I.F.T Nation Network and all of its beautiful people who allow me to come on here and do this beautiful show. I will see you guys next Friday. I am so thankful that you came. And oops. I'm still learning my buttons, guys. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.